The message came late at night, glowing coldly on my phone screen while the house sat in silence. 3 simple words from my wife, words that somehow felt heavier than 1,000 accusations. Stop asking questions. She had just landed in Miami, and every time I tried to ask about her trip, she shut me down the same way. No details. No warmth. Just distance. The kind of distance that slowly turns love into doubt. And as I sat there in the quiet living room of our small house in Ohio, staring at those words again and again, I felt something inside me crack. Because sometimes the truth doesn't arrive politely, sometimes it forces you to chase it. Before we continue, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel if you believe that kindness and love can still change lives. Your support truly keeps stories like this alive. My name is Nathan Carter, and until that week, I believed my marriage to my wife, Rebecca, was strong enough to survive anything. We had been married for 11 years. Our life wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. I worked long hours managing a small hardware store outside Cleveland, and Rebecca worked remotely for a marketing company. We built our life slowly, like people stacking bricks one careful layer at a time. But about 3 months before that text message, something in Rebecca began to change. It started subtly. She began taking calls in another room. She started traveling more often for company events. Her phone was always face down on the table, and every time I asked about it, she smiled in that distant way and told me not to worry. At first, I believed her. Because when you love someone deeply, your first instinct is trust, not suspicion. But doubt is like water dripping onto stone. It doesn't break things immediately. It wears them down slowly. The night she told me she was going to Miami for 4 days was when the feeling became impossible to ignore. Rebecca barely looked at me while packing. Her suitcase snapped shut quickly, like she was sealing away secrets. I tried to stay calm. I asked simple questions. Who are you meeting? What hotel are you staying at? When will you be back? Her answers were short, impatient, defensive. Finally, she sighed and said something that felt like a wall slamming shut between us. Stop asking about my trip. That was it. No explanation. No reassurance. Just silence. For the next 2 days, the house felt like a hollow shell. I walked past her empty side of the bed every morning wondering how we had reached this point. I replayed our memories in my mind like old home videos. The road trips, the lazy Sunday breakfasts, the nights we stayed up dreaming about the future. I kept asking myself the same question. Was I losing my wife? By the 3rd night, I couldn't take it anymore. My chest felt tight with questions, and every unanswered message from her only made the silence louder. So I did something I had never imagined doing in 11 years of marriage. I booked a flight to Miami. The decision felt reckless and desperate, but sometimes the truth demands courage you didn't know you had. The plane ride was long and restless. My thoughts twisted between fear and hope. Maybe I would find nothing. Maybe I would prove my doubts wrong. Maybe Rebecca would laugh and tell me I was being paranoid. God, I hoped that would happen. But deep down, I felt something else waiting. Something painful. Miami greeted me with warm ocean air and bright sunlight that felt strangely out of place with the storm in my chest. I checked into a cheap hotel near the beach and stared at my phone again. Rebecca had finally texted that morning. Busy today, talk later. 3 words. That was all. But this time, I wasn't going to wait. I had quietly checked the social media page of her company and noticed something interesting. There was no company event in Miami that week, no conference, no marketing seminar. Nothing. The knot in my stomach tightened. That evening, I walked down Ocean Drive, watching couples laugh and music spill out of crowded restaurants. Everyone around me seemed to be celebrating life. Meanwhile, I felt like a man standing on the edge of losing everything. And then, by pure coincidence, I saw her, Rebecca. She was walking out of a beachfront hotel lobby, but she wasn't alone. A tall man walked beside her. Confident, well-dressed. The kind of man who looked like he belonged in expensive places. For a moment, my world froze. I stood there across the street, unable to breathe. My mind raced with 1,000 terrible conclusions, but instead of storming across the road like an angry husband, I forced myself to stay calm. I followed them. They walked toward the beach, talking quietly. When they reached a quiet stretch of sand, they stopped near a small group of people standing around a table. Then something unexpected happened. Rebecca stepped forward and hugged an elderly woman sitting in a wheelchair. The woman's face lit up with emotion. Confusion replaced the anger boiling inside me. I moved closer, close enough to hear pieces of the conversation carried by the ocean breeze. That was when the truth finally revealed itself. Rebecca wasn't here for a secret romance. She was here for her mother, a mother she had spent years searching for. The woman in the wheelchair was Margaret Hale, a woman who had given Rebecca up for adoption 34 years ago. Rebecca had discovered her only recently through a DNA test and had been secretly communicating with her for months. The man standing beside Rebecca was a social worker helping coordinate the reunion. Rebecca had been terrified to tell me. Not because she didn't trust me, but because she feared reopening wounds she had buried her whole life. Her childhood had been filled with unanswered questions about why her mother left. And now, standing on that beach in Miami, she was finally facing those answers. I stepped forward slowly. Rebecca turned. When she saw me standing there, her face went pale. Shock filled her eyes. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then tears started sliding down her cheeks. Not tears of guilt, but tears of relief. Later that night, sitting together on the quiet beach, she told me everything. The DNA test, the emails, the fear that if she told me too soon, the reunion might fall apart. She hadn't wanted to raise my hopes, or her own. And suddenly all the walls between us felt small and fragile compared to the truth we were finally sharing. Sometimes silence isn't betrayal. Sometimes it's fear. Fear of being hurt again. Before we reach the ending of this story, I want to ask you something special. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment right now to comment the word hope below. Your comment helps this story reach people who might need it today. That night, Rebecca and I walked along the shoreline while the waves rolled gently onto the sand. For the first time in months, the distance between us disappeared. The next day, I met Margaret properly. She held my hand and apologized for the pain her absence had caused Rebecca. Her health was failing, and she had spent years trying to find the courage to reach out. Life had separated them, but time had finally brought them back together. Rebecca squeezed my hand tightly as we left the hospital later that afternoon. I realized something important in that moment. Love isn't just about trust. It's about patience. It's about believing in someone even when the story doesn't make sense yet. Sometimes the truth doesn't arrive the way we expect. Sometimes you have to fly across the country to find it waiting quietly on a beach. And sometimes, the person you feared losing was actually trying to find a missing piece of their heart. If this story moved you, reminded you of someone you love, or made you believe in second chances again, please like this video, share it with someone who might need hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this. Because the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us that even when doubt enters our lives,